I just can't keep up with them in this antique gym.
The lead mobile suit of any Gundam series tends to be a state-of-the-art prototype, but the units fighting alongside it, or against it, can sometimes be a bit less than stellar. And today we're going to have a look at 5 of these horribly outdated mobile suits. The 2 rules I'm using for this list are that they had to be a production unit and that they had to be actively deployed in some number around the time of their outdatedness. This means no Zannies or anything that Neo Zeon found lying around. Number 5. The Gym 2. The Gym 2 is essentially the poster boy for outdated machines. After the Lost Fleet's crippling attack, the Federation needed a quick and cheap way to rebuild their army with reasonably up-to-date mobile suits. So why not dust off those one-year war gyms, give them an overhaul, push them back into service, and call it a day. It performed reasonably well when they were rolled out, but by the time the Grips War broke out, the Gym 2 was already seriously behind the times, and the ensuing arms race didn't help.
Hey Clark, what's wrong? Why can't we hit these guys?
Despite this, the Federation was unable to completely replace their Gym 2 units, and they would continue to serve for many years to come. The Semi-Striker tried to bring glory to his brethren, but alas. In the Gym 2's defense, there was one contemporary machine that was even worse, the Hyzak. Featuring similar performance but a worse power generator, which meant that the Hyzak could use only one beam weapon at the same time. During the Grips War, this was laughably bad.
Sorry, that seat's reserved for me.
Oh, Lieutenant Jarrett, are you sure about that?
We see even junior mobile suits using beam weapons. At least this thing was discontinued after the Grips War. On number 4, we have the Jagans from F91. During the events of F91, the Federation fielded 3 main variants of the Jagan. The Jagan Normal Type, which was an overall improved version of the Shar's counterattack era Jagan, the Jagan B Type, which replaced the hip-mounted beam saber rack and grenade rack with 2 5-tube missile launchers for heavy firepower, and it also replaced the shield with a twin beam saber rack. Finally, there was the Jagan A Type. Its thrust and mobility were pushed to the limit, the hip-mounted grenade rack was replaced by a second beam saber rack, and the shield was replaced by a Zeta Gundam-inspired grenade launcher. This was the best Jagan of its time and was a favorite for commanders. Now, while the Jagan was a very popular mobile suit amongst pilots, they were in for a rude awakening when their nearly 3-decade-old machines were decimated by the Crossbone Vanguard's miniaturized mobile suits. Not even the high-mobility A-Type could keep up with their agility. And to make matters worse, the beam shields of the Crossbone Vanguard's mobile suits made them even harder to kill. Fortunately, the Federation quickly realized how out of date their Jagans were and began replacing them with the Heavy Gun, another machine that would quickly become a favorite amongst pilots. Speaking of which, on number 3 we have the Heavy Gun Makedonia Type. The Makedonia Type was an overall improved version of the Federation's extremely well-performing Heavy Gun. It was lighter, faster, and had a more powerful reactor. So, where was the problem with this thing? Well, it was used almost half a century later. So what happened in the meantime? The Heavy Gun was eventually replaced by the James Gun, which was quickly followed up by the much improved Javelin. However, by the time the Zanskar Empire attacked, the same empire the Makedonia Type would be fighting against, the Javelin was already hopelessly outdated. So to get an idea of how well the Makedonia Type fared, let's be generous and say that it was about as powerful as the James Gun, which was the weaker version of a horribly outdated machine. There are better ways to kill yourself. Number 2, the Ares. I'm sure a lot of people were expecting the Leo here, because memes. But believe it or not, the Leo wasn't actually that bad.
Besides, if it's a fight he wants, I should at least give him my best.
But that's a video for another time. Back to our beloved Ares. Unlike a lot of suits on this list, it wasn't even that good at the time that it was put into production. In order for the machine to fly, its armor was thin, structural integrity weak, and usually outfitted with only machine guns and missiles. Weapons that couldn't even hope to damage a Gundam. Worse yet, even though it was a dedicated flying machine, a Leo with a flight pack was, simply put, better at flying.
Wouldn't the Ares Lightspeed mobile suit be better than the Leo ground battle mobile suit? My Leo is plenty fast enough.
The only advantage that the Ares had over the Leo was its range. So at that point, why don't you just get a fighter plane? So it goes without saying that by the end of Gundam Wing, these things were almost completely useless, and the only way that you were going to get anything done with them is if you had balls of steel and went G-Gundam on your enemy.
Move! Ares! Damn!
And finally, on number 1 we have the Genoese. Due to the Silver Chalice Treaty, the Federation had a bunch of restrictions when it came to developing new weapons. So they took an existing civilian construction mobile suit, modified it a bit, slapped on some quote-unquote weapons, and called it a day. Now, while it's not unheard of for a government to turn to a civilian vehicle to make a new, never-seen-before superweapon to turn the tide of battle, the Genoese wasn't one of them. Featuring great weapons such as a beam spray gun that did about as much damage as a Super Soaker on a hot summer day, and a stick.
When I joined the Corps, we didn't have any fancy schmancy tanks. We had sticks, 2 sticks and a rock for a whole platoon, and we had to share the rock.
I feel that it's necessary to point out that the Desperado, the machine this abomination was based on, used a heat shovel and a heat pickaxe, both of which had much longer reach than a heat stick. But who would want their frontline units to have good weapons? Because of this, they didn't claim a single victory in the first 15 years of the war. For crying out loud, at some point you gotta figure out that stuff just isn't working and develop either a new machine or a new weapon. I mean, this level of incompetency and brazen disregard for soldiers' lives would put even World War I commanders to shame. For this reason, I couldn't help but put the Genoese on number 1, even though it does eventually get the Dots rifle. And that's all we have time for today. Be sure to leave a comment down below with your favorite outdated machine, or maybe I should say your least favorite outdated machine. And if you like this kind of content, be sure to like and subscribe for more. See you all next time.